Hello, it's Will.
And James from Amazing Race Season 32, and this is our recap for Amazing Race 34, episodes 8 and 9.
How are we already on episode 9?
I know, this season has flown by. We are so excited to be joined with two very special guests from this season of Amazing Race. So let's just go ahead and bring them in. Abby and Will. Hi, y'all.
Hey, guys. Hey. How are y'all?
We're good. We're good. How are you two?
Great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I know we did our exit interview with the two of you like a couple of weeks ago, but we wanted more time with the two of you. So we're excited to talk a little bit about the last two episodes, also to hear your thoughts about how the teams are doing that are still in it. But how has it been watching the show now as just a viewer watching your competitors?
Yeah, it's interesting because like there's always, when you're out of it, there's a little bit of sadness of like, oh, I'm missing out on it. But at the same time, there's also no more stress anymore. You can just kind of enjoy what's going on, and you get to watch people that you really like getting to know. So it's been fun for us.
Yeah, it's like we're watching our favorite show, but with like some background to all the people and people we really like. So I think the first couple episodes were really fun to watch. And actually this last episode was the first time that like the jealousy was setting in a little bit more. But for the most part, it's actually been more fun to watch since we got off because we're not stressed anymore. We're just enjoying it like a normal show again.
Yeah, the stress that comes every week with watching it, with the anticipation of A, not knowing what they're going to show, B, how it's going to be edited, and then just knowing the outcomes of the episodes, it just adds a layer of stress, especially with family and friends who watch it with you, not knowing what's going to happen.
Is there anything that surprised you watching these past couple episodes since y'all were gone? Has there anything been like, I didn't know that happened, or that's been a little shocking?
Honestly, at the finale, like the teams that had gone out, we all got to like sit in a big circle and like hear kind of the war stories.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the big moments have not been surprising. It's like the smaller moments that are funny, like Aubrey with the like sardines or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was so funny. And that's something like you would never hear about just like chatting to the cast. And so those like little moments are the fun parts.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's probably something that she probably even forgot about.
Right.
Right.
It's like such a small moment, but it's funny.
It is. Yeah, there's some really funny small things that are great to see.
Well, let's start off talking about episode 8, where the teams travel to Toulouse. They're leaving the panorama in groups 15 minutes apart based on the order of their arrival at the previous pit stop. Toulouse looks absolutely stunning, and I always love hearing Phil's little factoids about like where the teams are going and how like this was like the city with all the bricks. So I was excited to see what this leg was going to entail. But we have in group 1, we have Molly and Emily and Marcus and Michael leaving in group number 1. And then group 2, we see Derek and Claire with Lewis and Michelle. Now, these two teams, I feel like we've been seeing them kind of work closely together the past couple of legs, whether it be finding out directions or going to certain, tasks together. So it's been fun to see this evolution of Derek and Lewis's bromance, if you will. And then the last group being Aubrey and David, and then Maddie and Quentin. Was the relationship with Lewis and Michelle and Derek and Claire like talked about, or like was it kind of obvious that they were always kind of like looking at stuff together, or no?
No, I think we were kind of curious when that really happened, and frankly, I'm a little jealous I wasn't able to be included in that love triangle. But I mean, evidently we did. Like when we traveled, we all sat kind of close to each other, so I think that could have been part of it. Is just more time together.
Well, and truthfully, we were the team that had at least tried to work with Derek and Claire. Like we tried to work together that first leg. And so I wonder if part of it was with us gone, Derek and Claire were kind of looking for their new buddy. And it makes sense that Lewis and Michelle would be the next one because they were right across the aisle on the plane too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A lot of the downtime, I think, viewers don't understand just like the camaraderie that's built between you and the other teams. Like we all understand at the end of the day, it's a competition and only one team can win it. but you're still creating these memories. And like all the downtime were actually some of my favorite moments while racing. But then when you watch the edited episode, you're like, oh, they all want to slit each other's throats and stab each other in the back. You're like, well, in reality, we are all actually really good friends.
Yeah. I know. I feel like it's actually one of the few reality shows that like there is kind of that healthy competition, but still camaraderie there. Because at the end of the day, like if you and your partner are not on the same page, then like that's on you. Like that's the biggest like factor. I mean, y'all's season was a little different with the alliances, but like still, if y'all hadn't been able to work together, I don't think an alliance would have like served you. Mm-hmm. And so I think that allows it to be a little more like cordial, because ultimately this is where it matters most. Everybody else kind of the added benefit of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good point.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's like the only show where you're not voting each other out.
Yeah. Also true.
Because of that, it's all like your own ability to do the task or to kind of accomplish the goals. You can't really vote each other out or get rid of each other. I mean, you can U-turn and do all these things, but that's not always a guarantee that team's going to go home. Yeah. So it's like, it is a healthy balance of competition, because you can't, like, I can't vote anybody out of the game.
I know, but I feel like I sound like a broken record. The U-turns need to come back. It needs a little bit.
So need to come back. I am so with you, James. I think it's so good.
Add an element to the show, look, we don't always need a villain. We don't always need people who are like conniving and manipulative or whatever, but it just adds a layer of drama to the show. But also we kind of understand what the racers are thinking in terms of who their biggest competition is, what's their strategy long-term for the Amazing Race. So I just, especially with you all's season, I just feel like there's so many strong teams that I would have loved to have seen a U-turn implemented to really like get to know the dynamics among y'all, because we keep hearing how like Emily and Molly, they're really threatened by Marcus and Michael, and they seem to have this healthy rivalry. But I'm like, imagine if Emily and Molly got to like U-turn Marcus and Michael, the drama of that, it would just add a layer to it that I think we need with just all these pivots that the race had to take with the pandemic.
I think they would have to bring back the gaps in between teams leaving, though. Because with the 15 minutes, if you only leave 15 minutes like behind somebody or ahead of somebody, and then you get U-turned, like your game is over. Much game over. I feel like that's where like the U-turn allows it to kind of stabilize when you have like an hour between teams leaving, kind of thing.
Yeah, because I have no idea how long the differences were between when people finished these last couple legs, but I know the legs we were in, it was always so tight.
Yeah.
So a U-turn in our season would have ruined the team. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would have been game over.
Yeah. And that's the side of it that I understand of like taking it away, because 15 minutes is not that long. And I know for us in our season, every leg, I would say there was like a 4-hour window of time where teams would show up. So there was always a pretty big gap from like the first to the last team. So that kind of helped a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then for every leg of our show, we all started at the same time. So it was always an equalizer. You got off the plane and all teams would go together regardless of when you started.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And we had the U-turns when we all started at the same time in Brazil, and then also in, where were we? Cambodia.
I just think it would be fun.
I think it's fun. I want to see a little drama.
Or maybe how the yields were on our season would actually be interesting with this new format of the group departures, because like a 15-minute yield, like it just, none of us really ever used them. It felt like they didn't really make an impact. So I don't know. I think maybe the format of the yield would have been interesting. With
give everyone a U-turn and you can use it at any point.
That would have been wild. Well, I can only imagine how it would have changed the dynamic of our entire cast, because knowing we were in a U-turns, we were like, oh, we're just kind of racing and having a good time. It's not going to be, it is me versus someone else. It's us versus another team. But it's also like, I don't have to watch out for another team. I just have to beat another team.
And people said that. They were like, oh, I can tell you that I'm good at puzzles now, since like you can't U-turn me. You can't do anything with information.
We were just talking about how that's it's more like you can be more open about things, knowing, because that's why I think our season became so social, was because of the yields on top of the U-turns. Because there were so many.
You're trying to be friends so that my
don't
friends
get
aren't going to yield me.
Right.
At the end of our season, when it was like at the end, we all started revealing secrets that we had not shared. So like who was super fans and who had done all these things, and like and
you keep your cards closer.
And we wouldn't have kept secrets if there were no yields or U-turns.
I think if anyone could have used a U-turn or some sort of advantage to slow teams down, it would have been Quinton and Maddie this episode. I mean, they seem to have a real terrible streak of bad luck in terms of directions. It looked, or it appeared as, you know, a viewer, that there was 2 different routes to go to Toulouse. It seemed like majority of the teams took that A20 route, and then they kind of took a separate route, maybe a more scenic route, if you will. But they just could not find their groove with directions, where, let's say, a yield or a U-turn had been on this leg, maybe they would have been able to make up a lot of time with teams at the front using the U-turn, or who knows. I felt really terrible for Quinton and Maddie, because they just couldn't get their footing this leg.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And like what I was wondering too is when we were in the Innsbruck leg, we had our maps, right? And you had the maps from Munich down to Innsbruck. And there was the very direct route that was highways. And then there was the much less direct route that was actually a lot faster, that was interstates. And so they showed Q and Maddie, and Maddie was like, yeah, it's the direct route. And what I'm wondering is, like, did they take the back road direct route when the interstate that went around like this was actually the fast one? Because when you're not totally familiar with the map and you just see, oh, that's straight up, that's exactly where I want to go. You're like, great.
That looks right.
But you can get so lost in it. And we heard their like backstory too about all the like different misturns and like.
And they got pulled over.
Oh yeah, when we did our activity, I was like, already are you leaving in the last group, but then you're also screwed with your directions, and then now you're having more time to get stop because you're being pulled over by the police.
That would be so bad.
I don't know.
Yeah,
rough lag for them.
Yeah.
Did they ever tell y'all that you had to take a certain route to get to a city, or you had to figure it out on your own always?
The only time we got like turn by turn directions was the drive from Bologna to Florence. And so we were like told which turns to take for that one. But then like they also didn't limit us from pulling over and asking someone for more directions if we needed to. We just didn't get provided a map that time.
Yeah, which a lot of people ended up asking for directions, I think, because it was close to a 2-hour drive and we had like 10 directions. So like 10 steps for 2 hours is kind of not that much.
So stressful.
Like an hour goes by and you're like, I haven't done anything in an hour.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was so stressful.
That's funny.
So for the roadblock this episode, teams went to a rugby stadium where we found out that one team member had to perform a rugby training drill and then complete a drop kick in order to receive their next clue. I know there was some criticism online. I feel like some fans were just complaining about like a stadium, like you're in Toulouse and like you go to a stadium. But I thought it was really interesting to hear about like the rugby team here in France and how it's like one of the top performing ones. And at least they got to do a really fun routine. Like I kept thinking about a stadium that they went to on the family edition and they had to search the entire stadium for a clue on the back of a seat. I would much rather watch them do a drill than having to look all over for a clue.
I agree.
It's also really unique. Like, I feel like it's common for the race to do like dancing challenges or cooking challenges or things like that. I don't feel like it's usually like a truly like athletic sports kind of challenge. And as people who play sports, I'm like, I am here for that. So I thought it was a little bit more of a unique take than what I was expecting. I loved it.
Have you ever, I don't know anything about rugby. I've never seen rugby. Have y'all seen a rugby match or been exposed to it at all?
I have seen it, and I was incredibly impressed and thought I would either be broken in half if I played it and didn't want to touch the field. But it's so impressive to watch.
Yeah.
Who out of the two of you do you think would have ended up doing this roadblock?
I would have fought him for this one. I probably would have picked myself, but I should have picked him.
If you ask Abby though, anytime who should have done it, Abby's like, "Oh, it should have been me." It would have been a bit of a battle. I think either one of us could have done it. But we were talking about the thing that everybody seemed to struggle with was the drop kick, right? So Abby was like, "Oh, that would be so easy." And I was like, "Abby, you don't get it. You're not just like punting it like you normally do. You have to drop it and then kick it." And then we saw what happened when everybody tried to do that.
Yeah, but Claire and Lewis, like, first attempt, I mean, that's what the edit made it seem like. I mean, I'm sure they did it on their first attempt, but who knows, really. But they made it look so easy. And I was like...
And then big old Marcus.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
That one was a surprise. I did not know
agree.
that was really...
That one was crazy. It's like the ball is so oddly shaped that like I would be... it would be a new thing for me to see it and be like, oh, how do I bounce it on the ground to where it's not going to like fly away? Where I can actually kick it. It would have been a learning curve. But yeah, I was surprised that Marcus couldn't get the ball.
He was cracking me up because like maybe it took like 7 attempts, but I feel like the last attempt that he was doing, he seemed so fed up with it that when he had to tackle that bag, he like did a leapfrog over it. He was just so fed up and over it. But I've been saying this about Marcus and Michael for a couple of episodes now. I feel like they are so driven by the idea of winning that they sometimes get in their head with certain tasks or their communication with each other. Because like there's times where they'll check in at a pit stop and they're like disappointed that they got like 3rd or 4th. And I'm like, you're still in it. Like that is an amazing feat in itself, but they're never satisfied if they're not winning. So I feel like him being at that roadblock and maybe not performing as strongly was because maybe he was getting in his head seeing other teams leave and it was just frustrating for him. But I feel like that's going to be their downfall coming into this next half of the mega leg, is that they're just too focused on winning, which I think makes room for error.
Yeah, I mean, all of us on the cast viewed them as one of the strongest teams. And part of it, I think, also was like, you knew they were going to try to win every single time. And they had that expectation. So it was like, yeah, they're the most intense, like focused, locked in of anybody. But I do think that if you get so focused and you start doing bad, you can definitely start falling apart a little bit. It's a bit of a dangerous road.
But devil's advocate, Michelle and Lewis talked about how like they flipped their mindset. Like, I can't remember which, it was that first leg that they won.
Yeah.
And they talked about how they like became focused on being a top team, not being middle of the pack. And I really identified with that of like, we went in trying to not lose.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said about going in trying to win.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think there's a balance to it, but I do see what you mean. Because I think there's also like when your pride gets involved, you're more in your head. Like yodeling was so easy and fun for me because I had no pride. But if you put me in that rugby, I would have probably like been like, all right, this is my thing. And if I didn't get it, I would have been mad and gotten to myself.
Good point.
Yeah, it's like there's two things, because with Lewis and Michelle, it was like they recognized the steps they needed to take to kind of win the leg. So it's like things take time. You're gonna have to focus on the details. But I think with Marcus and Michael, they sometimes be like, oh, this should be easy. This should be really easy, and let's just kind of like get it done and go on, without realizing like, oh, it's actually going to take some time. So if it takes an hour, that's normal. So it's not going to take 5 minutes to do stuff, because you do have to have that mindset of like, oh, I'm going to like win. I want to win.
Yep.
But it can't be what blocks you from being successful at the challenges too.
Yeah.
True.
For Emily and Molly, I think that they obviously made the right choice on Emily doing the roadblock because of Molly's injury. I'm worried about her injury. It seems like it's getting progressively worse, but I thought this was a fun roadblock. It was entertaining to watch.
I did too. I also loved that it was the much easier, smaller part, but watching the different people tackle the dummies was so good to me.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Did Claire kick it on her first try?
Yeah,
I was
we watched
shocked.
the episode with them, and we were all like, "Okay, Claire."
And then she was like, "I was almost recruited for rugby." Talking about
yeah, that was hilarious.
that was so good.
They're so good. So going on to the detour of this leg of the race, the two choices were say six or lay bricks. In say six, teams had to find 3 poets who each displayed and recited 2 verses of the French poem. And then teams had to recite 6 stanzas to a judge in order to receive their next clue. And then in lay bricks, teams had to lay bricks in order to recreate a sidewalk pattern in order to receive their next clue. For y'all, did you guys have any strategies in terms of how you picked what detour you did? And if so, what side of the detour would you have gone with on this leg?
This, if you know, I have no pronunciation skills. My friend who is French tells me, like it says, I sound like a 2-year-old when I try to say anything. So like that one would not even been in the question for us. Plus, we would try and do more physical tasks. Generally.
Yeah, I think the memorization piece of it, like that's something that I think is usually a skill of mine. So if it would have been like a roadblock memorization, like I mean, we would have had to do it, but like we'd have felt better about that because I could have done it. But if it's a detour, we're both going to be involved. We'll just switch it up. We'll stay away from it.
I think we initially said we would have probably done the French, right? We would have.
Yeah, but
I think we would have switched like Lewis and Michelle.
I actually think we would have picked the bricks initially just because of language is always so tricky, especially with poems because it usually doesn't make sense.
I was shocked so many people picked it.
I was too.
I agree.
It's impossible.
Well, I think maybe it was, I forget who said it, but someone told me that you had to like go across the bridge and come back with the bridge. There was some
so it was like a distance thing
with the other detour that made it less desirable. Where with this poem one, it seemed like these different people dressed up were all kind of within the same courtyard.
Yeah, but I mean, even with the poem, you saw teams have to do it multiple times because it was a lot to remember and the pronunciation mattered. And I don't know any French.
No.
I couldn't tell you any of the words if I read it. So I don't know. I don't think we would have done that one either.
But
I would have been okay running across the bridge.
I loved how Claire sort of tackled this because she would take words
like word
and
association,
which I think we probably would have picked up on. Sure. But she seemed to be doing better than Derek when Derek's the one that's like, I took French in school. No-brainer for me. But then I'm like, Claire's totally showing you up right now with their word association. But yeah, Lewis and Michelle, they switched that detour real quick, which is always a huge risk. But I think that served them well to do that side of the roadblock. But I felt like both sides are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, they didn't seem too bad. And I mean, good for Lewis Michelle switching that quick too. I was always worried, like if we got in that situation, we hang out way too long at one side because it seems like it's a hard decision to make. Unless, like Lewis said, you're just like, if we're gonna switch, we're gonna do it immediately.
Which is the way to go. It's the only way you should ever switch detours is immediately. Yeah, but like, I don't know. I never would have done that French one. After watching it, I don't want to do it. I don't know if I could do it. Like, nothing about that
is scary and intimidating with her like stare.
Yeah,
it's like she's doing witchcraft or something on the teams.
Yeah, that one looked hard.
Yeah.
When y'all were doing detours, was there ever a moment where you thought about switching at any point on your race? Really? Which one?
In Austria. So you asked if we had a strategy. We did. Don't dance. What did we do?
We danced.
I was like, we can do this because I wanted to dance. So I was like, oh, I can just lead Will. Like, it's a partner dance. I can lead him. When we got to the end of the instructions and the instructor did the knee slap thing, and it was like Will had to do it alone. No help from me. I'm just spinning around him helplessly. I looked at him and I was like, can you do this? Should we switch? And he did it and it was fine. But that was the only time we like really thought about switching, or I did at least.
Yeah, that could have been a moment of like pride becomes my downfall. Cause I was like, Abby, I'm going to get this freaking dance. It's just some knee slaps. I can do it. Of course, but it could have been bad.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The one thing that I do appreciate about the race is that everything that they do, anyone can do, regardless of if you're like a professional dancer or if you like don't have any rhythm. it's usually where you can figure it out. It just is going to take some time, because I know there were some times for us where you'd walk up to a detour, you'd see them do it, or like whatever the task was, and you'd be like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And then you like do it once and you're like, okay, it's just going to take some time, but I'm going to get it. And it's like a learning curve and it'll be fine. But yeah, that first like initial, what is happening will make you question everything.
Yeah.
Well, for y'all, it was the bottle one. Because I remember watching that one and being like, what?
No way.
And then I saw y'all practicing it in your den. And so before we went on the show, I practiced.
Yes.
Because
it's amazing.
Confidence that you can learn something you've never done before. And that's what the race is all about, I feel like.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, the confidence thing is like the biggest piece of it. But also just recognizing that it might not take 5 minutes, but it might take an hour, and that's normal. You just got to like stick with it.
Yeah.
Because that bottle dance for us was rough. It took so long for us to finally like get where it even sat on your head. Like that was a huge part of it. The dance part of it was fine. It was very simple, but balancing that stuff on your head, it was like, oh, I really have to like.
I know Michelle Victoria had their hair up in buns, and I'm like, if we just had a hair bun right now,
we might have been good at that. We could have just wrapped both our hair.
We both had a bun at that point, a little backwards.
I love it. So this pit stop was kind of cute. It was actually giving Amsterdam vibes. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Pretty self-explanatory. They just had to find Phil at this cute little boat. I appreciated the editing to the pit stop with the last two teams, with Aubrey and David and Quentin and Maddie, because it made it appear like it was pretty or relatively close. But I know when we talked with Quentin and Maddie, they said that they saw Aubrey and David leaving the pit stop. Like they had already.
They said it was 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's what I was wondering, that because like. How we knew Quentin and Maddie, they would not have walked to the boat.
Never.
So it was like they must have seen like someone there, because they would have been running their butts off to get there if they knew they still had a chance. But it's crazy it was that close.
Well, and we were talking with them, and I said, it's crazy to know that one mistake with directions really caused you to be in the back, because y'all were only 4 minutes behind after making a couple of direction mistakes. That is crazy, because you would have been further up in the pack. In the race, when you get down to like this final 6 or final 7, like there's not very many teams to make mistakes, and so those small mistakes really like can make or break.
But
you.
4 minutes.
4 minutes is tragic.
They honestly too, like just challenge wise, I felt like they had to be one of the strongest teams.
Yeah,
they just knocked out challenge after challenge. It was just directions a lot of times, whether it was a driver somewhere or just more directions.
Going to the wrong country.
They just ran into some direction issues because they blew through all the challenges.
Yeah.
Hey, that's part of it though. It
is. It really is.
That's a huge, especially for y'all season, because y'all drove so much.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I think one thing that stuck out with me when we talked to Quentin and Maddie, I think Quentin was saying, I would rather be that close and lose than have it be like a complete blowout where they like show up 2 hours later. Or maybe it was the other way around. Did he say he would rather have Phil come to them and say be that close? I forget, but we had a really great exit interview. So if anyone wants to check that out, it's on our YouTube channel. But we really liked Quentin and Maddie. We loved the energy that they brought to the race. I wish that we would have gotten to know them a little bit more. I think with the edit, they were kind of more of an under-edited team, unfortunately. But they seemed like a lot of fun.
Yeah, they had I forget Quentin's line exactly now, but Quentin's line of like staying
calm, cute, and collected.
Yes.
That was like my favorite line all season so far. And then like a little smile at the end.
So good. I know. Well, I texted Maddie. It was that first like France episode, and I said like, okay, I feel like y'all are really shining, and it was good to get to see their edits because like they were a pair that we really loved like on the race, and so it was nice to get to like see their personality at least those like last 2 episodes.
And they're funny.
They're funny.
He was like putting his leg out and like pulling stuff close.
You loved it.
I thought that made me laugh so hard because I was like, that's something that I would do. But yeah, they were fun. They were fun in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I also really loved at the pit stop. Well, we can talk about the order. Derek and Claire getting first, which love that for them. Congrats to Team Purple. And then in second place, we had Lewis and Michelle, and third, Molly and Emily. But I really loved Molly and Emily's moment at the pit stop, and just hearing a lot more about her being a single mom, how she wants to show her daughter that, you know, you never give up and you just keep pushing through. And I'm hopeful that because of that kind of narrative we're seeing with her, that she's never going to give up and will continue to push through the pain no matter how much it hurts. I would love to see them in the finale, but I'm still just so worried about her injury.
I mean, to even be pushing through when you are hurt, especially because it is so physical and running so much, like that's huge. This is not even remotely the same, but when we were in the Philippines, we had one of those high heels, but after I was done, I had blisters all over my feet. It was awful. And then we had to run around the entire city. That when we were running the pit stop, I took off my shoes and I started crying because like it hurt so bad.
He was crying, and I was like, "Well, we gotta get to the pit stop. Stop crying."
Yeah, I mean, you're putting your body through something that's like not. I mean, it's like an intense sport kind of because you're just like you're tired. You're I don't know. You have race brain. Your body's kind of doing things that like you don't normally do that on a daily basis.
I've said it practically this whole year. The Amazing Race is much harder than the challenge. Fight me on that. I swear by it.
No.
That's the difference. The race is still by far the hardest thing I've ever done.
Huh.
Interesting.
Nothing against the challenge. Like it was, great fun, but it's not the same as.
It's shorter bursts. Like you do a challenge and then the mental part. But
and then we get to sleep in a compound in nice beds. Like we slept on airport floors. We slept in like travel agent. Like we slept everywhere.
Yeah.
We don't really get sleep on the race either. So
adrenaline's going. But kudos because of pushing through the injury. Like that's huge because it's easy. We've seen in previous seasons where like somebody gets hurt and they have to leave.
Dave and
Connor when the dad got hurt. So like to push through and like not give up, that's huge.
Yeah.
I
love that.
Super. It's so impressive. I can't imagine. If I even had the smallest injury, I would have been crying on the ground and asking I'm a big baby.
So Molly is in the chat. So hi, Molly. Thanks for joining. Okay, so let's talk about episode 9. The first half of this recent mega leg. Groups obviously are departing in their typical departure groups. We have Derek and Claire and Lewis and Michelle. They have to find Plaza de la Merced. I am not surprised that once again we see these two teams kind of running with each other, looking for directions with each other. This budding bromance is still alive and well. And then in group 2, we have Emily and Molly, Aubrey and David, and Marcus and Michael all leaving together, which I feel like leaving all together in the last group, like it's nice to know you have other teams with you. Yeah. It's always nice to have another team inside.
They're like, I mean, she's hurt, but the rest of them are just kind of prancing down this hill. I would have been like running.
I was thinking it had to have been so steep because everybody was going slow.
Yeah, like I would imagine like Marcus and Michael would have been bulldozing down that thing if it wasn't just like straight down.
Yeah.
And you also heard the teams kind of talk about it and like kind of do the like almost old person shuffle, like down the hill to make sure they didn't fall. So yeah, we were speculating that it was a lot steeper than it looked.
Yeah. I wonder how far they had to go.
Run from that to the plaza.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It looked like a long way. Even just going downhill looked like a long way.
Where were they? Castillo. I'm going to do a little Google map really quick.
Castillo de Gibraltar
to Plaza de la Merced. I love that they're in Spain. It looked beautiful. It makes me want to go there over the summer because the beaches looked so nice.
It looked amazing. Spain's high on the list.
Have y'all, any of the countries that y'all went to on the race, had y'all been to any of them before?
We had been to Italy. So,
really?
Like, actually, when Abby did the sculpting piece and she knocked it out, and then we ran down the hill, we popped out at this restaurant that we'd actually been to in Florence. And I was like, Abby, you remember drinking rosé at this restaurant?
Oh, that's so funny.
It was really funny. And so, like, we kind of knew that area a little bit where, like, I was like, okay, this is the Vecchio. Like, if we just run up and down it, we'll find the piazzas on the Vecchio. And so it helped us a little bit actually knowing that section, or at least just making more comfortable. Because I didn't remember this, but I was like, I've been here. I can figure this out.
That is
love
funny.
that.
Yeah, that confidence piece, even like remotely having a little bit of comfortability.
Well, it's like when we went to Manila.
Yeah,
we had been
twice.
many times before.
Yeah.
Molly was saying that it was steep enough that we weren't allowed to jog down it.
That's crazy.
The map is saying it was about 0.9.
Okay.
So about a mile.
Yeah. Wow.
That's probably because of the camera equipment. That stuff is heavy.
Yeah.
It's so heavy.
There was one point where I was like, "Can I just like hold it?"
They did.
Like,
Remember in race training, they wanted you to feel
how heavy it is. And I'm like, "Oh, it's like carrying a whole other human on you." Like that's intense.
Insane. That sound stuff is so heavy. That big backpack they have to carry.
It makes you appreciate them more when you have to put it on your back and like practically fall over.
Or then when you like run the wrong direction too far and you're like, oh crap, I have to turn around. I'm so
sorry. When our Trabant broke down in Berlin and we had to run to the hotel, we were like 1.2 miles. And they were like, you can either fix it or you can run. We're like, oh, we're gonna run. But we felt so bad.
Our sound guy goes, y'all go.
And I was like, y'all go. Slow down. He's like, just keep going. I can hear you. Keep going. And we're like, oh God, I'm so sorry. We have to run this whole way.
We're like talking into our mics, like, we're so sorry.
We're so sorry, Mickey.
Oh, was it Mickey and Alan?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. They're there for so many iconic moments.
Yes.
So this roadblock, I felt like was straight out of Big Brother because it was a competition on Derek and Claire's season in the very first episode. Who will be the master of pieces? And one team member had to arrange 6 glass panels in order to recreate Pablo Picasso's The Three Musicians in order to receive their next clue. Out of the two of y'all, who do you think would have been more likely to do this right?
Their hand.
You're just like me.
That's a legit one. With pieces, anything puzzle, it's Abby.
Yeah.
So we would have thought pieces probably puzzle. It would have been Abby.
Yeah.
This one is
funny.
What about
I think I would have done it. Yeah.
You would have had more patience, I think.
Yeah.
My immediate thought was lay out the tiles on the ground first before putting them in and out of the frame, which is what Claire was doing because she did this challenge on Big Brother and won it. So I think that was the learning curve, was like figure it out first before really putting it in, because I feel like putting it in, sliding in and out, even with the help of that attendant, like it still took time.
Yeah.
One thing that seemed really hard was like, it was kind of hard to see. It felt like it was like, they would be like, yeah, you're right. And I'd be like, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
If you say so.
That's
How do you know?
Like,
How do you know?
I shouldn't have been there because I can't tell at all what this looks like.
Yeah.
Me neither. All the colors look the same. Like I was like, I don't know if they got it right.
Imagine being colorblind and having to do that.
That was
Nightmare.
Oh, it would have been so hard.
It was a fun roadblock.
No,
it wasn't
was great.
it was pretty
But it was
straightforward.
hard to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once again, with Marcus and Michael, though, they seem to really be struggling here. I mean, Michael's sitting watching Marcus. Marcus seemed pretty confident. He was like, I'll do it. And I feel like Michael is just getting frustrated watching Marcus try to do this because it was taking him a while.
And at the end of it, when he actually got it, it was just because his last piece was incorrect, which is crazy. Because I feel like it's really demoralizing when you get something, but to know that you had it right at the beginning, besides just one piece that you should have moved, and you tried everything and didn't do the one thing that you needed to do.
Yeah.
Like that, we would walk away from that being like, oh my gosh, like I it's all my fault. Like I did it wrong from the start. So that would be really hard.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's like, especially when it's the first challenge of a very like long day.
Yep.
And you start out that way, that is definitely a demoralizing way to start.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
That's one thing though that I think I appreciate about watching Michael and Marcus is they're frustrated themselves, and like after that you can tell Marcus felt bad about it, but they're almost immediately like, all right, back into it, let's go, go. So they just lock in and keep going.
Well, especially with it being a mega leg, there's still so much race and room for other teams to make mistakes and errors that could really open the door for Marcus and Michael to catch up. Yeah, as rough as it is to start the leg that way, at least there's still so much left to yeah, they were struggling with that.
I kind of wanted to just do the bike ride. I just wanted to. That looked like so much fun, riding the bike on the coast.
Well, Aubrey was like, "Let's just take a minute to soak it in."
And
like,
then she looks at him and she's like, "Are you enjoying this?"
We loved that scene where she's like, "Be happy, David. Be happy."
We're riding bikes.
Sweet God, that made me laugh so hard because she's like, "Wow. Be happy."
I loved it. I thought it was so funny.
That was hilarious.
Because you could tell she was very happy and it was beautiful. And just something about that interaction, we were cracking up. It was great.
It felt very relatable, actually. It was a very relatable moment.
Well, because on the race, like you want to soak in all of these places. And majority of the time, the only time you can do that is when you're in transit, whether you're driving, whether you're in a car, or like going somewhere. That's when you can soak everything in, because when you're doing a task,
you don't really.
You can't. It's like you could, but it's hard. It's hard to even think about being like, wow, this is so beautiful, even for more than like 5 seconds. So that transit part, like Aubrey was like, this is great. That's like when you have to enjoy it.
Yeah, I liked that. I like seeing teams really enjoy and take a minute to enjoy what's going on around them. It was a cute moment.
And I'm sure Marcus and Michael were happy to see the bikes. Because they were probably like, all right, weird.
Time to catch up.
Really.
So after this roadblock, they had to do their detour, which was between fish fry or sailboat supply. And fish fry, teams had to skewer and roast 18 sardines in order to create a local dish and receive their next clue. In sailboat supply, teams had to inflate a stand-up paddleboard and deliver a cooler filled with ice and life vests to a yacht anchored offshore in order to receive their next clue. Out of these two detours, I mean, you guys said you did more physical stuff. Do you think you would have done paddleboard?
Physical, with the exception of you don't want me to have to balance.
Okay, fair.
It might have been like, Will lay down on the board and I'll stand on top of you. So that way but that might have been our best chance.
Yeah,
there.
Will would have been Michelle and I would have been Lewis.
Okay.
So yeah, that one for sure.
It looked like the more fun one. I mean, it would have been awesome.
I agree. The fish is kind of gross.
Yeah.
It's kind of nasty.
I'd rather would have been more physical. I think that's what we would have done, paddleboarding.
Yeah, I love paddleboarding.
Even though he broke his finger on our honeymoon paddleboarding.
Maybe not anymore.
I'll sit down.
You would be on your knees. Yeah, you would be on your knees.
Which that was one of my questions to the teams. I asked Derek and Claire when we were with them on Wednesday. I said, could you sit or could you like be on your knees or did you have to stand up? And they said you could kind of be on. You just had to get everything there and then everything back.
You just couldn't dump. I mean,
and I was like, oh, then that's fine. We can sit. We can like be on our knees. It's easy. I think we would have done. It
was really just making sure the ice didn't dump out because
Yeah.
you have to deliver a certain amount of ice, otherwise you'd have to go back.
I was worried about Lewis there for a second when that thing was like flying around.
That was it's wild that only a little bit of that ice came out.
Yeah.
Because like that thing was like
it was like 90 degrees.
Yeah. That tipped over. He was cracking me up, even just like pumping it up, like pumping the paddleboard up. He was just going haywire doing that. Michelle was eating it up, loved every second of it. Their dynamic has been so enjoyable and fun to watch. All the locals were getting excited and hyping them up. So I just thought that was a really fun moment.
Very high energy.
Very high energy.
They bring great energy. They always have great energy.
For sure.
On the fish fry, though, Derek and Claire were there first, and then Aubrey and David came second. And it seemed like Derek was giving some pointers to David and Aubrey in terms of like salting the fish. Like, don't forget to do that. What do you think of that moment?
There's strategy in giving teams a little bit of help. And saying that, like, if in the next leg or at the next challenge, there's something that I'm not good at that you are, maybe they'll return the favor.
Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of the strategy. But I think on the flip side, if you know that the teams in the back, for instance, are Emily and Molly and Marcus and Michael, who have both done really well,
better.
That it also helps you to keep teams. Aubrey and David, who haven't won a leg, they're the only team that haven't won a leg. Keep them with you, because if you feel confident that you can like pass them at some point, that's another part of the strategy. Or you just want to be friends and you're like, let's do it together.
I definitely felt like there was strategy in that. For what you were saying is that of all the teams that are behind them, Marcus and Michael, I think, are like the biggest threat at this point in the race to a lot of teams. So if you can keep other teams ahead of them to ensure that they might get eliminated, especially with no U-turns or yields, then
it's like
why not?
It's like their version of a U-turn is like helping teams to stay ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was a smart little move. I definitely felt like there was strategy behind what Derek did.
He had employed a similar strategy when they were driving around that first leg of France, and he was like, "Come this way, follow us."
Yeah, he was like, "If we're going the wrong way, at least we got someone with us."
That was always our biggest thing. Was as long as we have one team in sight, we'll feel a lot more confident. But the moment we don't have a team in sight, I feel like that's paranoia starts to set in of like, oh no. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting, the little exchange.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, obviously this episode ends with a little bit of a to be continued. I mean, this drive looks incredible.
I want a convertible.
I wanted to drive a
convertible. I also love that the camera and sound guy or girl is not with them. It's just GoPro, which looks so fun. You can kind of, relax and enjoy the ride.
Yeah,
it's just back to like that's when you can enjoy it as a convertible. That would be fun.
But then we see that Emily and Molly and Marcus and Michael are still at the beach, still doing their detour. So I feel like anything can happen really going into this second half of the mega leg. Yeah. I'm excited to see how it ultimately pans out for these teams.
I was excited to see because we of course don't know where people were finishing, especially in the first half. It was cool to see at the end of the episode Marcus and Michael could see Molly and Emily, so you really don't know who it's going to be, because I feel like sometimes when people mess up on that first challenge, if you don't see that they catch up, you have no gauge of how far behind they are, and I like that we have that gauge that okay, Marcus and Michael can see Molly and Emily, and we know they're a strong team. So it really is anybody's game.
And I love it too, because we've seen this budding rivalry between these two. Well, you hear more so Molly and Emily talk about how they're their biggest threat. So I love that they're at the bottom together, because I feel like it's going to be.
I don't want Emily.
Well, no, but I'm just saying from a tension point, we're seeing this narrative come to light of, oh my God, maybe one of these two teams will actually meet their demise on the second half of the.
Well, because a lot of times, once a team gets in the back, it's kind of a linear, we know they're going home. They can edit it a little bit to make it look close to the finish, but you kind of already know. But with the mega leg, I feel like there's going to be a lot of shifting before the end of it.
Yeah, those are long legs. I'll be curious to hear how long this one actually took from start to finish. If it was anything close to the last one.
How long was the last one that y'all had?
I think somewhere between 11 and 15 hours. It was a entire day.
So after y'all finished that mega leg, you go to the hotel. Did you have a long rest time, or?
I'm trying to remember how long we had.
So truthfully, this season there was so much more rest than any other season because of the charter flight. Like we were all on the same schedule. So like what you talk about like sleeping in the airport or at like a flight attendant agency or travel agency. That didn't happen to us. So like we were on kind of a typical schedule. We may have had a little bit additional time, but I never felt like we were like short on rest.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really
because our mega leg was only I think total 6 hours.
Okay.
From start to finish, it ended up being around a little more than 6, maybe 6.5. Because when y'all, I mean, I don't know if it was y'all, somebody said that y'all's was that long, 11 to 15 hours. That's crazy.
Well, imagine that time, but in India doing our mega leg.
That is crazy. That's a long day.
Yeah.
I am curious to know how long this one took.
Yeah.
Because where are they? Spain in the summer?
Yeah.
It's probably hot.
We'll find out on Wednesday.
I know. The preview for it looks pretty intense too.
Yes, on next episode, teams continue the mega leg in Ronda, Spain, where they must choose to build an arch brick by brick or dress for success. So it sounds like the detour options. But then we also see the roadblock of them doing little, wire thing between a bridge. And Aubrey's not a big fan of heights. Claire doesn't seem to be a big fan of heights. So I always like seeing people really have to step outside of their comfort zone. Because I tried to avoid heights the entire race. And then, of course, in the final leg, I'm stuck doing it. So that's what I love about the race is people having
Get you out of your comfort
really
zone.
step outside of their comfort zone.
Are either of you scared of heights?
No, but you can take a guess on who would do our heights challenge.
She's like, I want to do everything.
It's so fun. I want to do all the challenges.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I would have loved to do everything. Because it's so fun.
I mean, like I even joked when we wrapped our season. I was like, if you told us the race was still going, like we got to the finish line, like, all right, we're doing it again, I would have been so down.
Like, let's do it again.
Like I would have just kept going for another 4 weeks. Like I don't care if I'm tired or hangry or lost 12 pounds. Like I'm still ready to go.
Because everything that you do is stuff that you can't recreate. You can't go to Petra, you can't and do the challenges that you did, or you can't go to France or wherever to do those things. Like those are so unique opportunities that you get to do, and they're always so fun. You may be stressed out a little bit, but it's still fun.
Yeah, no, it's a blast. And like for people that, everybody on that show loves competition too, and to be able to do something that's so fun and also be like competing. Like you don't get to compete much day to day.
No,
doing your normal thing, but it's so fun to get the like competitive excitement back in there. And with all that fun stuff too, it can be a blast.
Yeah, and I like the aspect of it that's like facing your fears, getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to see that there are people that are afraid of heights. Y'all asked me that at the beginning, and I couldn't come up with much. And now I'm like I'm like going off about all the things that surprised me. But I didn't know Claire was afraid of heights or that Aubrey was afraid of heights, and so I'm kind of excited to see them potentially face that. I think that's one of the most endearing parts about the race.
What since Abby, you wanted to do every single roadblock. Was there one that Will did that you really wanted to do on the race that you were just like, oh, I'm so mad that I didn't get to do that?
Maybe not that I didn't get to, but I definitely should have done.
I think basically what Abby wants out of me is someone to carry her backpack and tell her where to go. And other than that,
your moral support.
Yeah,
exactly. I like the activities, but truthfully, the Ducati is like a 3D puzzle. In a sense, that's at least how I think of the building challenges. And I'm the puzzle person. And I feel like that was one of our mistakes was like, I should have done that one. Yeah. So I don't know if it was a get to, but but should have. But I really do want to do all of them.
Yeah. Same thing for you, Will. Is there something that Abby did that you wish you would have been able to do or that you should have done?
Ooh. I'm trying to think of the ones Abby did. Like yodeling, I would have sucked at. That would have been terrible.
I would have loved to see him do that one.
I mean, I would have also loved to.
That's the thing that was good about the race for me is I have a bit of like I don't like looking stupid, and like the Amazing Race is like, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with looking stupid.
Yeah.
So yodeling would have been like a big time first challenge of like majorly looking stupid. So that would have been good for me on a growth perspective.
I'm surprised you don't want to do the sculpture.
The sculpture would have been kind of fun.
Like,
yeah, I would have liked to just knock off those big chunks. But then when it got to the fine detail, that would we probably been similar on that. Abby was poking holes all in that guy. I would have done the same thing. But I feel like I got lucky on the ones the roadblocks that Abby did were the ones that had beautiful views. So like in Innsbruck, I just kind of got to sit back and admire just beautiful scenery. And same thing in Italy, in Florence. It was an awesome view of the city. So I was like, this is good for me. I'll take a breath, take in the view, chat with the other teams. You got it, Abby.
That's what happened to me when James did one of the roadblocks in India. I sat with Aparna and we drank Gatorade and like this is so beautiful. And while James is like crying, running around, and we're like, "You got it."
I didn't cry.
Running around being
livid.
Sure. But I got
testy.
But I literally got to sit with Aparna and just like soak it all in. I was like, that's what I'd rather do. And I can just like enjoy.
Aparna was putting makeup on.
Yeah.
Aparna are like freaking out. Well, thank you both so much for joining us with our recap. And we love talking about the race with you two. We know that you guys are fans like us. And it's fun to hear your insight, especially since you lived this. You got to race with the teams. And we're really excited to see how it ultimately plays out.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. This is so fun. I still can never get over that we're talking to y'all whenever we're talking to y'all. So this is like my dream come true. This is so
Abby, I totally get it. I get it. We're kindred spirits in that way. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching our recap, and we'll be back this week when we find out what happens on the second half of the Mega Leg.
Can't wait.
And
I can't believe it's almost over.
No, it's gone so fast.
It goes by so fast.
Hey, but that means 35 of Amazing Races right around the corner.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
I'm stoked. Bye everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.